kau aki pea mo e maho inga o e lanu mata a ho tau ātakai. Pea i taim te tau foki, o ku nau pehe foki ko e ngahi kolo ke kehe i ngai ahoni, o ku nau whemo e kina i hono toe tō ai ngai ulu akau, i ngai feitu ke o kau ia i he ngahi whakamata lelei o e ngahi kolo. Hange ko ia ko Los Angeles, ko whaia hono tō ai ngai ulu akau, pea ko tafoki ai ngai mea o ku makehe aki a LA, ko hono palm trees, pea ko hange ko ngai fu ulu niu, ka i tu ko e taimini hange o alu ke toi si i mōli atu ai ngahi palm trees, pe koe ngahi ulu pāme ko ia i LA, pe aku maho inga au pito ke toi whaia hono whakairi ai ngahi ulu akau ko ia i ho tau ngahi kolo. Pe ko ia ai koe ngahi lea ko ia e o atu, o kaua ia ngahi lea e kau matao koe ni o nau talanoa whekau aki mo e ngahi savea, ka e umaa whoki e ngahi whakotu whakakau. Whakawhekau ake e ni ki he whie mau ke toi lanu mataange ho tau ngahi kolo. He pehe ko toi lelei ange, pe ko toi lanu mataange ho tau ngahi kolo, ko toi lelei ange ia ai mo ui ai kakai, tau te whito ke ki nao tolu ko ia o ku nao toi masive siva ange. Ko ia aina e whahoko ai e ngahi lea ko e ni, pe te tau kamata pe me i he lea me taha o e kau toke tā Michael Charrett, pe koe tō taha koe ni o ku ngā ue whokia i he tawhaaki ko ia o e ātakai, pe mo ui lele e whakasaya nisi i he UCLA, pe koe University ko ia o Los Angeles, pe i he taim te tau, tuku mua ake tau wakai ki he lea koe ni, pe te tau tōk talanoa ki ai e osi ai lea.
Sounds good. Let's go to the original order. I was looking at see if he was on. So UCLA Professor Michael Jarrett, welcome. Hello.
Michael?
Michael, are you on?
I think you're on mute.
Still, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. But we don't see the slides.
You don't see the slides. Okay.
We see your calendar.
Okay. Let me try again.
Okay.
I can also run them if it's easier.
Yeah, that might be easier if you don't mind.
Thank you, Jessica.
It's not working, but let me try this one more time. Okay, do you see it now?
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to talk to you today about the associations between green space, tree canopy, and parks with life expectancy in neighborhoods of Los Angeles. This is work that was done in collaboration with the Prevention Institute. It was really a wonderful collaboration, which really showed, I think, the power of community-based research.
I think Jessica's running. Oh, there it is. Okay.
And for anybody that wants to see the full paper, it's here. And I'll just do a shout out to my colleagues at the Prevention Institute, Manuel Avaleta, Alba Yanez, and Jasdeep Baines. When we look at the evidence on green space and health, we can see that contact with nature, both green and blue spaces, so parks, coastal areas, trees, a wide range of human health benefits. And evidence from Los Angeles suggests that green spaces and park access is worse in areas where there are low incomes or large populations of Latinx.
Hange go mea kulawe ki ai tamayo e ki koe ni Green Space and Health. O gui ai whoki a ngai wheitu ulahi i LA ko asi pe hai ai whie mao ke toe lele iange a ene lan mata e wheitu koe ni. Tau te whito ki ngai wheitu koe ia o gunofo ai kakai koe ia Communities of Color pe a moe kakai koe ia o gui kai ke lahi whiunga pe koe kau low income. Ko kau low income, because nau tolu ko ia kui kai ke sai e nau tuunga whakapaanga. Pea mo ka kai ko ia lanu, pe ko communities of color, ai tau kawa ki tau tolu nau pehe, e ki nau tolu ia i nau ngai savea, mo ngai whakatotolo ko ni o whakahoko, o kui kai o whakaau ke to e koviange, ai tūkunga o kui ai e ātakai i ho nau wheituu. I nau wakai ko e ke ngai pāka, ange koe tānoa koe ni oku nau whakahoko, wakai ke ngai pāka koe quality koe pāka alu ke toe koviange. Ie tū koe e taimini, pea kune ue sia e ia ai tu unga koe ai mo ui lelei, pea mo ui whakasosiale, ai kakai o e wheitu koe ia tau te fito ki he communities of colours. Pea koe whakatu whakakaukau, ke toe whaihato e ngā ue e toe lelei ange, pea ke maupe e he kakai ko ia o kunau kala pe o kunau lanu ke he. Ai whainga maali e tatau pe a mo e kakai ko o kunau toe maume ange. Ai a ko tānoa ko ni o mahino mai me heni ko ngai wheitu ko ia i LA o ku maume ange o ku toe whakaofo ange honau ātakai tau te fito ke lanu mata ko ia honau ātakai. Whakawhianaki ki ha wheitu o ku nofo ai ha kakai o ku nau o si e nau mau anga pa anga pe nau toi masive sivange. Ko tu uia ko i he taimini pe a ko e whakaamu. Ke tatau pe ai ātakai o e kau maume a pe mo e ātakai ko ia o e kakai o kai ke nau maume a.
Asian people. The quality of the parks is also worse in these socially disadvantaged areas. So the proposition is that if the parks are unevenly distributed, but they do promote health, that some of the population inequalities that we see in Los Angeles are due to these inequalities in park access. If we look at the human timeline, it's good to be reminded that we evolved in nature, and it's really just been very recently that we've moved into cities. And this has spurred several theories about why nature might be good for our health. The most well-known is by E.O. Wilson, the Harvard ecologist, who coined the term biophilia, meaning that we evolved in nature, so there's an inherent love for nature, trust for nature, there's evolution, so we've adapted to natural stimuli, not artificial input, and that has made us genetically predisposed to react positively to nature. Environmental psychologist Roger Ehrlich built on this with the stress reduction theory. So we have this immediate response. It's not conscious when we see nature. There's stress recovery and relaxation. So we see the savanna, vegetation, trees, and we're prepared to react to nature, but not to build settings. This also has been expanded by the Kaplans, who've said that there's attention restoration. So there's a universal meaning to nature, to people, and general positive values. And there are cognitive mechanisms. And we all know when we're in a modern office how demanding it can be to try to focus, whereas we have this innate fascination when we're in contact with nature. So when we look at the literature, we can see that there's a tremendous amount of evidence that suggests that we have reduced attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorder, reduced mortality, reduced cardiovascular illness and respiratory illness, and reduced depression when there's higher contact with nature or a better access. We also see that pregnancy outcomes are improved, so preterm births go down, low birth weights go down, well-being and happiness as measured by validated scales goes up. Cognitive development and brain function in children has also been shown to be improved as academic performance. So against backdrop, we initiated this collaborative project with the Preventionists to assess the association between life expectancy and access to parks, green space, and tree canopy in neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And we hypothesized that life expectancy will have a positive association with measures of green space and parks, and the parks will have a larger impact on life expectancy in areas where without much green space or tree canopy. When we look at life expectancy, there are many different determinants that are listed here. You can see that environmentally, there are negative ones like air pollution, lifestyle factors like smoking, obesity, physical inactivity. I won't go into the details, but I can say that we characterize all of these factors in our statistical model to try to hone in on what impact green space particularly had. This research was made possible by work that was done by the Center for Health, National Health Statistics, the CDC, and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, who developed these very small area, these are known as census tracts, estimates of life expectancy. And across Los Angeles, it goes from 68 to 93 years. So if we're somewhere in the south central area, it's about 68 years. When we go up into Malibu, it goes up to 93 years. And you can see that when we look at the satellite retrieval at 0.6 of a meter resolution for green space, that there's a lot of variability. And you can see how that plays out in a residential neighborhood on this slide. You can also see that the park need is unevenly distributed, and at least visually, it looks like it's correlated with life expectancy. So when we did our statistical models, we found very consistent associations between the presence of tree canopy and life expectancy. So more trees, we saw increases in life expectancy. More green space as measured by that satellite image. We also saw that. And I think this is really important and fascinating that when we looked at the impact of parks in areas that did not have much tree canopy or green space, we see a very strong linear influence on life expectancy. But in areas that are already very leafy, say like Brentwood or parts of West Los Angeles, we can see that there's really not a lot of impact when there's already a lot of green space. And this has implications, which I'll talk about in a minute. So when we look at quantifying, the effects were quite modest. They were adding maybe 2 to 4 months of life expectancy, depending on which variable we looked at. But when we sum that up across the large population of Los Angeles County, it adds more than 171,000 years of life expectancy. And there's a real environmental justice implication here because many of the neighborhoods that are underserved for parks and green space are populated by Black and Latinx residents. About 122,000 or almost 123,000 of those life expectancy years gained if we brought everyone up to the county level median or about the average of green space would go to Latinx and Black residents. And when we think about the interaction between parks and green space, this highlights the importance of improving parks in areas without much green space. And these are oftentimes areas that are poor and have large populations of Black and Latinx people. For anybody that's interested, the Prevention Institute did a tremendous job with an park advocacy toolkit. So you can go to their website and get this if you want to start using this in any of your research or reporting. I just want to thank the funders and the people that shared data with us and the Prevention Institute for their leadership on this project. Thanks very much, and I look forward to our discussions.
Thank you, Professor Jared.
The Lord.
Hage ko mea ko ia o kumo mea mai ki ai ho e pa mo e kainga ko e talanoa ko e ni whekau aki pe a mo e tanoa ko e ni whekau aki pe a mo e tanoa ko ni o whekau aki pe a mo e lanu mata o e atakai o kuiai a ene whekau aki ana ia pe a mo e mo ui le lei ko ia ai kakai pe ko mo ui pe ko e a mo ui kakai ko e lanu mata ange feitu o nau nofo pe ko atakai o nau nofo ai ko ene to e lolo ange ai e nau mo ui ne o ngoku ai pe ngahi mea kekehe o ku ngahi makatu kia anga hange ko lahe diabetics ko lahi ai tapaka e lava ke ne wesia ai loloa e tau mo ui ka ko e whatatau ki whamatala koe ni o mai pia mei he kau matatao koe ni o nau pe he o guiai o swai e nau tole whakatotolo koe ni Pea wea e whakawhilawe ia ai loa a e te mo'ui, pea moe a takai koe o ku te nofo ai, o ka pau o ku lan mata. O ku ne toi hanga whoki e ia o toko nii, ki tau tōlanga koe tau tūkunga whakakau-kau, pe koe ka pau o te ongo o te stress, pea te alu ki ha pāka o tanguto sio ia e lan mata ko ia ai a takai, o ku ia e ne toko ni lahi au pito ka te tau tōlu. Aia koe samari pe ia o ki talanoa ko ia nai o atu e he tamai o eiki pe koe taha e kau toke taha filosefa ai ne tau toke whanongo ki ai. Ka te tau hoko atu en ki he kaunanga ko e ni pe mo ene talanoa pe o whika o aki mo e mahu inga e lan mata ko ia ai hotau ngahi kolo.
Important, of why trees might be important for us to be looking at as the city. So I am the first city forest officer for the city of LA. I started in this role in 2019, and I oversee the Office of Forest Management that's housed within the Board of Public Works within the city. And we look at collaborating with other departments and ensuring that the city is enacting policies and practices that are going to help ensure that we have more tree canopy, healthier tree canopy for our residents. So one of the big projects that we're working on is our urban forest management plan. So you heard about the importance of trees with the prior speaker and all the health benefits that could be provided to our residents if we made sure that we had tree canopy in all of our neighborhoods. But we really need to have healthy trees in those neighborhoods and have trees live their full lifespan in place in order to achieve those benefits. And so in our office, we talk about what I refer to as the 4 pillars of urban forest management for the city of LA. And those are planting, which is the one that people frequently think of, let's plant more trees. But the others are equally important. If you don't have all 4, you don't have a healthy urban forest. So we have planting is one, maintenance, how are we taking care of the existing trees in our public right-of-way, our street trees, and in our parks? How are we preserving? So preservation is the 3rd one. How are we preserving existing trees in place when we have new construction, when we have new development? In general, how are we keeping trees in place so that they continue to provide those tremendous benefits to residents? And the 4th one is engagement. And that's acknowledging that in a city, people are a huge part of the urban forest. They can either help the trees be healthy and stay in place, or can have negative impacts. And a lot of people have feelings about trees in their communities. I don't get a lot of feedback on, what maybe another piece of infrastructure like a fire hydrant or a street light. People may care if those work or don't work, but they don't care as much what they look like. But trees, people have a strong opinion about what kinds of trees and how those trees behave in their neighborhoods. And so this engagement pillar, we're looking at, again, educating residents on things like why trees are important for their neighborhoods. We're also listening about what's important to them. What are the aspects of the urban forest or benefits that trees provide that are important to them, and how can we design the city around them, the streetscape around them, to better support the look and feel of the neighborhood and the benefits that they care about. And then, so it's this back and forth, some education and kind of outreach, and then it's also listening to our neighborhoods so that we're designing together what that urban forest looks like and ensuring that it really meets the needs of our residents. So those are the 4 areas: planting, maintenance, preservation, and engagement that we as a city want to make sure that we're doing really well. So we're developing this first urban forest management plan, which we're hoping to complete by 2025. And this document will provide a vision for the future and be our roadmap of how we're going to achieve that vision. How are we going to do all those 4 areas really well? How are we going to use research to guide decision making? How are we going to gather community input for projects and for some of those elements moving forward? So, and how can we really achieve this healthier city? How can we have those benefits of trees be provided to all of our residents so that they can have the benefits of trees that Dr. Jarrett laid out, as well as other ones that we know of in terms of, increased habitat for wildlife, and improved conditions for, slowing traffic and other things that have these impacts on our neighborhoods. So we're developing this urban forest management plan, and we're actually about to kick off a community engagement campaign related to that, because part of developing the plan will be, again, as I mentioned, getting that feedback from residents. And so in January, we'll be having a series of workshops in neighborhoods across Los Angeles to get feedback from folks in person, as well as having a survey that folks can fill out. And the survey and the workshop materials are being translated into multiple languages based on the feedback of our community partners that are going to be helping us deliver those workshops. So just FYI, we want to hear from all the folks that live in LA, what trees mean to them, why they're important, what concerns they have, what areas they wish the city would prioritize. That's what we're going to be looking to get feedback on. So, and this project that we're doing for the Urban Forest Management Plan is being done in partnership with LA County. LA County is also developing their first management plan. We're developing ours. And instead of working separately, we're working together. And we're doing that for two reasons. One is so that we take the best practices and make sure we're applying them across the whole region. The trees themselves don't know if they live in the city or county, but the best practices for how we take care of trees and plan for trees is the same, right? We live in the same area. We have generally similar conditions. So we're working together to make sure that we're aligned on best practices and providing that regional leadership. And making sure that we're talking so that if a new pest or disease that could impact our trees in our urban forest comes online, that we can coordinate better to move quickly to address it. The other reason we're partnering with the county is because we know that we're going to be better off doing joint community engagement and education campaigns. We want to make sure that we're maximizing public resources and not exhausting our residents by having separate meetings. We want to hear from folks together, and we also want to do education together rather than developing our own separate campaigns, both now and in the future. So if we're sharing information with residents, we want to be collaborative. So we're partnering with the county, which is really exciting. And the last thing I'll just share is one of the big components within the UFMP, that's what we are how we're referring to the Urban Forest Management Plan, UFMP, that's for short, is not just looking at those 4 pillars of urban forest management, but we're also looking very specifically at the issue of tree canopy equity. The images that Dr. Jarrett showed you that not every neighborhood in the city has access to trees and green space and all the benefits they provide. And so we're laying out what our equity strategy as a city is going to be, and not just looking at the distributional equity of making sure every neighborhood has healthy, adequate shade for their public health needs, but also looking at recognitional and procedural equity, making sure that everyone has access to help inform plans in their neighborhood, and making sure that we're really recognizing things that have happened in the past in those neighborhoods and the different efforts of different groups in those communities. And so with our equity work, we've been partnering with 2 different groups over the past, I want to say 3 years at this point. The Urban Forest Equity Collective, which has been led by City Plant and Tree People. I know that Marcos is on the call. They're one of the partners in that collective. It's a large group of folks that have been working on a variety of research questions and helping us prioritize where we need to have certain interventions happen first and how we do good interventions that are going to result in adequate shade for residents. And then the second partnership was with the University of Southern California, USC, their Urban Trees Initiative, and their website, I'm happy to drop in the chat, has a lot of information helping us look at a couple different pilot neighborhoods and thinking about equity criteria. Again, how do we prioritize the areas that have the most need, and how do we do interventions that give us sufficient shade at the end of the day? And the reason that's important is most of the neighborhoods that don't have adequate tree canopy cover, not enough trees, not enough shade, have really small locations available for tree planting. So you think about the neighborhoods you go in where it's all concrete sidewalks, or maybe that grassy strip between the sidewalk and the curb is only 2 feet or 3 feet or 4 feet wide. I can only have city crews plant small trees in those locations, not just small when they're planted, but when they grow to their mature size. We can't have trees in those small spaces that are going to uplift the sidewalk or grow into the building or grow into power lines. So we have to plant really small trees there. And those don't provide us the same benefits. We want large tree canopy covered. We want large areas covered by shade when people are walking in their neighborhoods. And the benefits provided by large stature tree species are significantly greater, exponentially greater than small stature tree species. But the neighborhoods that don't have a lot of shade to begin with only have small spaces for us to plant. And that's part of the reason we've been partnering with these 2 research projects, is to help us understand where should we be doing something different? Where should our design within the city potentially shift to accommodate more access to high quality green space in our neighborhoods? How do we do that in a really thoughtful way that includes the community input? I'm not going to, we're not going to come in and change the design of the neighborhood without talking to the residents and understanding their priorities. And then also, how can we be really strategic about where we can get that maximum benefit when we do have new investments? Because currently, if we plant the existing available spaces in those neighborhoods, we may not get to the canopy that we think we need in order to have a healthy, resilient Los Angeles. So I've gone a little bit long, but thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end.
Thank you. And we have
Ko e tota ko e nina e lea ko e ni ko e whewhine ia ko Rachel. Ko lawe ipe ko e ngahi whahinga polokalama ko e ni ko e ka polokalama o ku tau manako ki ai. Ka o ku mahu inga pe whoki ho e kumoe ka inga ke tau wakai ki ai. Ki e ngahi ngā ue ko e tau te whito ki e whakaamu ke toe lanu mātaange aho tau ngahi kolo. Whatatau ke whamatala e whewhine ko e ni ko e ne kau taha o ku ngā ue whetake ni mai a pia moe Los Angeles County. Ko uhi ke nau whahoko pia kei ngata pe LA, kau whokiai pia moe University koia o LA, poko UCLA, pia moe ngahi kau taha whikau aki kehepe, o nau whengau e aki ke nau whakahoko ai ngahi ngāue maho inga e whākoe ni. Ko e ulu aki, ko hono toe tō ai ngahi ulu akau ke toe lahiange. I LA, pe koe planting more trees. Ko hono wā, ko hono tokanga i ngai ulu akau ko ia o Los Angeles, pe ko hono maintenance i ngai ulu akau. Ko hono tolu, ko hono whakairi ai ngai ulu akau ko ia i LA, pe ko hono preserve, pe ko hono whā, ko hono whakakau mai ki tau tolu ai kakai, ke tau kau whakataha i e mahu inga ia, i e lanu mata ko ia ho tau ātakai, a ke toe a kau ke toe lahiange pe mo ngai mea ko ia hange ko lea ko ki mua ai tangata ki mua o whakamahino mai ai o guai e whakawhelave ia ai loloange e tau mo ui a whakawhehoanaki ki he lanu mata ko ia ho tau ātakai whakatau e whamatala e whewhine ko e ni ko e nau whengau e aki ko ia pe mo County o Los Angeles kono uhinga ke na wolewa kamata ngai workshop ai e whakahoko ngai whiako aki ko ni kamata i Sanuari o tau kahau pe te nau sio ai ko hana e whie mau ai kakai ko hana e priority ai kakai ko hana e nau ilo whikau aki pe mo e pe mo whengai aki ai lanu mata a takai pe mo quality ko ia o ete mo ui hange ko mea kulawe ki ai, o kulahi au pito ngai wheitu i LA ko si isi e mea ko kolani mata ko inga, ko ngai langa ko ia whakahoko. O kui ai e ngai ve e halaia ko wakai atu ki ai ko lahiange ai la isi maa ia i he ki toe ngā ko ia o e mahalo me me ko inispe tolu me he la isi maa i he ngai walkway pe ko ngai alunga hala alunga ko ia e kakai. Me inis pe tol fa a ki lan mata ko ia osko ia pe hoko mai concrete walkway Aia o pe he fine ko ni e fai e fe po tala noa ak mo kakai o kai ke na loto ke na tol ke di ak kakai e fonua o fie ma o ia ke fai fe po tala noa ak mo na tol to e fai ha ko ki ki na tol mo ha fe ako aki ke mahino pe maho inga malie ai fie ma o ko ia ke toe lanu matange ai ngahi ai ulu akau pe ko toe lanu matange ho tau kolo pe me fe po tala noa aki ko ia te nau fa uleva ngai palani ai ko palania o fie ma o ke a usia pe ko palani ko ia e ma uia I e whenga aki mo ngai county ko ngai university o mai ngai research ka o mai ngai whatotolo o mai a whaia ka hano whau pe mo lau ko e kakai whau ai ngai palani ngā ue e lava ke muiaki pe a ke toi whaka ai kau mai e kakai ko ia ai kolo I he tō a kau ko ni mo fie mau ke toi lan matange aho mō ngai kolo. Ko e taha ia e tala noa o mai mea Rachel, ka te tau hoko atu pe ke ngahi lea, o hange koe lea pe me tangata koe ni.
And to offer that we could certainly get students working on that to identify those species if that's helpful to you.
I'll just say in response, those criteria are existing data sets that we have within our tree species, a draft tree species selection guide for this.
Koe ngahi tari whehu I penia pe mi e kau whai o ngongo, whekau aki pe mo ene presentation ko ia ai tamai ai kaunanga ko ni Rachel pe hange ko ia o toi ai lea tolu ke tau wakai ki ai o te lau ke lea pe I he maho inga ko ia ke lanu mata pe ke toi lanu mata ange ai funga ai fonua ko tau fie mau pe ke tau ki whakafeles e tau whakau kau ko fefe tu tsai ke te alu ki ai mo ni pe ta ka pau te mo pe mai ke tau ok fale lotu ka koe whukotu whakakau kau pe koe whakau kau te lava o whakasisi e puputu e te whakakau kau o ka pau te lue lue hapaka o wakai ke lanu mata e funga e fonua ka pau te lue lue ki ta ia o sio pe ki anga ko ia o ka pau te tau whakawhiana ki ange koe ni te lue lue atu pe te usio atu ki he light pe koe a street light lanu mata lanu kula kula whiri uri waki pe e kai ke hane liliu e ia e te whakakau kau whakawhianaki ki a taimi te alwa tangutu o siofi hafu akau o gai whahinga ongo ku te mau e kita I he taimi ku te siofi e hafu akau o ku lanu mata te sio ki ai, te fantasize ki te lanu mata, te hau e te whakau kau pe ne anga whewhe ene tupu, anga whewhe ene mo ui, te whakaofu ofa ia hono matala, te whakaofu ofa ia I hono fua. Aia koe ngahi me, aia o pehe e kau whewhine mo kau tangata koe ni, o ku mahu ingai ke toe lanu mata ange ai ātakai ko ia I ho tau whangaki I kolo. Pe aku motol koe tau te whituk motori LA koe ngā koe kau lea koe ni toko lahi taha ki nautol pe me Los Angeles ka pau lewa o ke LA watch out ke ngai workshop koe ni alo kau ki ai alo kau ki ai he koe lahi ange ai tau kau ke ngai workshop pe he koe lele ange ia ki he tau whanau pe moe tau tangata koe ia ka hoko mai ka aku mahau inga au pito ke tau mui mui e ngai ngā unu koia aho tau ngai county mo e ngai state o tau iai tau te fito ki e sio ki anga koia o e ngai me an.
Can I just say how grateful I am to have Rachel in that position? How awesome is that? And I'm also happy to be here and chatting with everyone. I think both of the presenters have made my job a lot easier just with presenting in the case of being able to not have to go over there. I know we have a certain amount of time that we're being allocated, and we, I think the folks on this panel can talk all day about this, and that is the thing that I think gets us to a point where we're not just passionate about this, we're looking at ways to be able to address these issues and how it works. So now that you all have received like the why and what the city's doing, I can talk about Treat People a little bit in the sense of what one organization is doing there amongst many to get us to where we need to be. Again, one thing is Treat People has been around for quite a long time. We are in our 50th year. So that is exciting. And we started out with this idea of, getting people to get together and take that personal responsibility, plant trees. It was a very, at the time, a hippie way of doing things, which I think is pretty awesome. And it started this really great movement within Los Angeles. And over the years, we got to a space where we're becoming more familiar with our landscape. And we are becoming more familiar with the needs of our communities. And we realized if we were going to make any drastic change in addressing some of these issues that are coming out with climate change and just everything else that rolls within Los Angeles County, we needed to start prioritizing the areas that need trees the most. And so Treat People has taken a step in prioritizing those areas. Again, the areas in need have been identified. We have been able to see maps of it and or of these areas. And just to shout out a couple of them, it's the Northeast Valley, South LA, Southeast LA areas, like Boyle Heights. And what we're doing now in partnership with a lot of local nonprofits, but also the city, is getting to a place where we can not only identify those locations, but identify the neighborhoods that we'd like to work in with a much more holistic approach. And what I mean by that is it's not just tree people going into an area and doing the work. It's tree people bringing opportunities to the communities in ways of jobs, education, like the environmental education, awareness, I should say, and then the education around how to be able to build around the urban forest. Again, there are priorities in these areas, and the priorities might not have trees or urban forests way up on top. So it's not that we're going into areas and saying, "Hey, you should be thinking about your trees." I often say, as I'm a bird watcher, and what great way to look at birds is in areas where you have trees. But I often say, if you could wake up in the morning and the first thought that comes up in your mind is, which bird am I going to see today? You're waking up with a level of privilege, and our community members don't all have that. My goal is to get them that privilege. I want people to wake up and think about which bird they're going to see today, which tree they're going to get to experience today. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but we are committed. And if it's one tree at a time, we're going to go ahead and do that. So a couple of things that we're looking at as being a process for us as well as an organization of growing. We realized that the volunteer model has been what has amplified our work. What we are now looking at is a hybrid model. So we continue to do that volunteer aspect, but we are now looking at workforce development. We need to be able to pay people to do this work, and we need to work with the industry to make sure that we're pushing back on best practices. We need to make sure that we are understanding the needs as Rachel was identifying those pillars. Yeah, we're all about that. Maintenance is huge. Also, preservation. If we're cutting down large trees and replacing them with small trees, we're not really doing ourselves the service or doing what is needed. So understanding that this needs to be a holistic approach. So currently we do have a model that is allowing us to seek funding that is supporting jobs across the board. We're able to bring folks in at the community level, give them training, experience, and amplify our message as far as being able to continue what is needed to have a sustainable urban forest. One thing that we're also doing, and what is allowing us, I know we're specifically talking about LA County, but a lot of what we are looking at for us and what is part of our mission is being able to share our process with the rest of the world. And even though Inland Empire might seem like a whole nother world, we are currently in Inland Empire, Antelope Valley, and we're able to do this work as well and really get to a point where we're able to plant a ton of trees and have a community investment that is going to be lasting. So yeah, I would love to answer questions at the end, but I do want to keep on my time.
Oh,
Ko e tāwhake ni a lea koe ni e tangata koe ni o whekau aki mo e nau ngāwe a nau tolu. Ko lea ulu aki na e lea i o whekau aki pea mo e uhinga pe ko hana uhinga fe ma wai ke tau toe a tokanga ke no toe to ai ulu akau I o tau kaunga api pe ko ho tau a kolo pe na ana ni os o hake ai e ngai whamatala fe kau aki pe mo ngai whakatotolo ne whai e kau taki ko ia pe ko e kau matao tau e sai ni si o mahino mai me ai o guiai e ka inga ai ulu akau pe mo atakai lanu mata pe mo loloa ko e tau mo ui ko ene lanu mata nge atakai ko toi lele anga ia a mortality ko toi ko toi loloa nge e tau mo ui hangi ko mea ko tarama elisita ko te lue ko he matatahi o e vai mo te siofiai ai ngai ulu akau o kune hanga e au clear e tau whakaukau. Ai au gai connection e ai mo ui e tangata pia mo atakai lanu mata. Sai, ko ne a whewhine hono ko nei tala noa ia, mahina ngai palpale mau koko I LA, nei tala noa le vai ke ngāwe ko ia o ku nau whakahoko, e nau ngai whe ngāwe aki partnership, pia mo e pure anga kau mai ngai kau tāwhi kau aki, ke whai ngāwe ke toi whakalelei I ake tu unga lanu mata ko ia, ai atakai I LA. Pega inga tai ka toi ako I ka kai ke mahu inga maali e kia ki nau tolu ai uhinga o mahu inga ai atakai lan mata mo atakai mo ui lele. Lea koe ni e tangata koe ni nane pehe. Koe ngai fōu ngai ni o nau address e ki nau tolu pia mehi e nau kau taha koe ang nau kau ki ai. Pea kune pe o taha e ngai mea o kune na anehanga o highlight I koe ngawe offer. Pe koe volunteer. Aia ko motolo ko ia o volunteer o ku kawia I he motolo mahu inga au pito na e toi toko lahi anga pe na e toi lele anga e nau ngawe. Ka I he taim te tau o kei fie mau pe ke nau kumi hapa anga ke totongi haka kai ke nau whai e ngawe o ka pau o fie mau ke tu uloa e ngawe pe sustainable. Pe I he taim te tau foki o kune pe he o kunau whaka amwe lava ke toi mau hapa anga ke train e kakai ko ia he community pe ke ako I kakai e community I he mahu inga ia ko ia I he lanu mata o kolo pe ke alu e kakai ko ia o nau whai e ngawe I he taim te tau pe e nau si mahu inga ia he lanu mata ai kolo ka ko nau oko e whai ngawe pe e lewa e nau ki I vahe e hoko e koha mea ke mau anga se niti tu ke hea me volunteer ka une pehe o mahu inga au pito ke iaha taimi o mau haki I a se niti aki nau tolu o nau whai e ngawe pe ke totongi aki nau tolu o nau whai ko ia ai ngawe wheka o aki mo mea koe ne o whai kia I e tala noa. Neongo ia ka neongo ia o kia e tau lea tah o whi ma o ke tau hoko aki ai ko rea whakaosia ki mu apa tau toki whakaosia tau polkarama ka o ko whakatawange pe o kuongo lele iat ko lawe I pe toi pe tau ki mini te valo ka te tau whenga pe ke whahoko ai lewa ai lea whakaosi ki mu apa tau toki whakaosi ka koe tau lea whakaosi
plus years, we've created about 30 parks and gardens, serving over 500,000 LA County residents. And in total, it's about 21 acres of green space, public green space. These spaces range from very small pocket type parks, like 0.15 acres, all the way to 8.5 acres, which is our biggest park to date, Wishing Tree Park, down in West Carson, that will be opening in a month or so. Out of that 30 parks and gardens, about 14 of them are managed by us directly year round, and that serves about 360,000 LA County residents annually. That means that the other parks are usually parks that we have built in partnership with usually municipalities, City of Los Angeles, smaller cities within LA County, or parks that we have helped in developing and then passed off. So Wishing Tree Park, we will pass off to LA County after we finish the construction. And I think the other panelists have done a phenomenal job of establishing the why, as Marco said as well. But I wanted to uplift one document that we often reference from Trust for Public Land. It's their Park Score Index. that they do annually. You know, we, out of the 100 most populous cities in the United States, Los Angeles ranks 80th out of 100, which is a very not great. We can do better in that by far. And out of that in particular, you know, they kind of break down the data as the other panelists have done as well, showing that non-white communities have far less access to park space. I think 64% less nearby park space than those who are living in white neighborhoods. Or if you want to slice it by class, lower income communities have about 66% less nearby park space than more affluent or higher income neighborhoods. So, you know, our perspective is there's a real need not only to create more public green spaces, you know, and we're talking about parks and gardens to be a part of the ecosystem of the, you know, and part of the urban forest canopy that the other panelists have spoken of. So not just to do this, but to do it explicitly from an equity and justice lens, so that all communities, especially those who have historically and thus intentionally been under-resourced, actually have the access to green space, to the benefits of safety and wellness outdoors, all of those studies that Dr. Jarrett shared earlier. And this also means going the extra mile with our projects. So not just saying, here's a plot of grass for, you know, here's a lawn, but, you know, but going the extra mile with climate resilience, with drought tolerant plants, with a universal design serving community members who have various disabilities or mobility challenges, and, you know, and justice in general in all realms of our lives. So, you know, I'll kind of share a little bit more from 3 core pillars that we practice from, and I'll put that in the chat. The first pillar is community engagement and advocacy. The second is park design and development. And the third is park and garden stewardship. So thinking across space and also across time. And I'm actually going to start with stewardship because the conversation about maintenance is really exciting to me in terms, you know, to reframe as one of stewardship. So of the parks that we ourselves own and maintain, right, operate and maintain, we steward them through a practice of hiring park stewards from within each neighborhood where those parks and gardens are located. So these are part-time employees that work approximately 10 hours or so a week, but they really become and lead, you know, in their communities, strengthening connections between residents, between our stewardship network, between us and our community partners and municipalities. So they are the folks who are, you know, really allowing these public green spaces to thrive and to serve beyond just being some kind of green oasis. Additionally, you know, in our stewardship pillar, we think a lot about our youth. And so we have operated a garden apprenticeship program, or the GAP program, we call it, since 2013. Have worked with over 350 students in South LA in 9th through 12th grade, really thinking about how we can arm the next generation with the knowledge and skill sets to operate in park equity and food sovereignty spaces. You know, developing leadership skills, public speaking skills, and understanding of how we got here so that we can understand how to move forward. Less so on the youth side, we also have practiced a Park Equity Leadership Academy since 2015, I believe, which has been more of a training program for folks, any community members who want to participate in the kind of work that we're doing. And I can speak to more of that to anyone who's interested off of this call. In terms of park design and development, and I'll say that I acknowledge that myself as a project manager, this is where a lot of the work that I do comes into play. My background is as a community organizer, but I'm also licensed as an architect in California. And so, you know, how do we take how do we implement is the big question. How do we connect funding sources, outreach and community engagement, in relationship with communities, and actually, break ground and move through design and construction phases to transform acres of space, so that is work that thankfully we never do alone. So one example that we're really excited to be a part of is the South LA Eco Lab, which we're part of alongside Marcos and Tree People, and a lot of other partners in South LA. We also have exciting projects across the county right now. We have a small park we're working on with the city of Hawthorne. We have projects in the works in Maywood, in Cudahy, and also in Watts. One of the ways that we are able to leverage our strengths is through a project that perhaps John will touch on too, which is the LINK program, which is Link Advocates, Governments, Families, and Parks. So we are part of 2 of those projects where we are partnered as a nonprofit with more technical expertise with a community-based organization that has the relationships in those areas. So Link South LA is one of our partnerships, and Link Southeast LA is one of our partnerships as well. And the idea is, when municipal agencies or other governmental entities are, themselves under-resourced or don't have the capacity to build and renovate multi-benefit parks, how do we pull in all of these types of actors, nonprofits with technical expertise or community-based organizations with these really strong relationships to place? How do we all kind of find our position in there? I think I'm running a little short on time, so I'll say one more thing about community engagement and advocacy. As I mentioned, that we never work alone. We're part of a lot of coalitions. So I'll just name 2. One is the LA Living Schoolyards Coalition, which I think some folks, I'm like not reading the chat, but I saw some people were talking about greening schoolyards. It's something we do a lot in coalition. We are active. We have a memorandum of understanding that with LA Unified School District, which is a valued partner for us, and we have done many schoolyard greening projects where we're taking out asphalt and actively putting in climate resilient and kind of like culturally specific and well-loved amenities. The other one that I'll mention is La Rosa, which is LA Regional Open Space and Affordable Housing Collaborative, through which we've been working across sectors, with the 100-acre partnership, which is, city, county, state entities, as well as community-based organizations in Northeast LA to combat and mitigate green gentrification. So understanding that we can build parks, but we have to continuously advocate and collaborate to make sure that those who were most impacted by environmental injustice are those who get to stay, remain in place, thrive in place, and have access to those high quality parks once they're built. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Peace.
Koe tau lea whakaosi ki he tau polokalama koe I he whiawhini. Pea o tui ho ik mo ka inga whatawange pe o kuongo lele atu. Ai maho inga koe ai toi lanu matange ho tau ngahi kolo. Tau toka ngai kina ngahi uru akau. Kai ngatai maho inga koe ko ene o ngoi ko ke whie mau ke ki break. Lue atu ke ngahi pāka. He o guiai ene kaunga ana ia te lue he lanu mata o e funga e whonua au ke ene kaunga ana ke anga koia e tau mo ui lelei. Pea tāna ki atu pe ki ai o maho inga ke tau kau ke ngai ngā unu koe ni ngai county tau te whito ke motol koe Los Angeles ki he ngai ngā ue maongo o ngā koe ni ka kohono tokanga e kina ai takai mo e whaamu ke to e lanu matange ai fua ai funga whonua sai ko e ngatanga e tau ngai polokalama pia ko e ngatanga ia o e polokalama koe ni pia ko polokalama whokoe ni whenga ai whataha mo ethnic media pia mo e ethnic media services ko e kautaha whokoe ni o kunau si tokanga kina ai ngahi kautaha o ngongo tau te whito ke ngai kautaha o ngongo e ngahi matakari ke pau na o mai e ngahi o ngongo ke tau inasi ai mo ngahi ngawe maho inga ke tau ako mei ai. Ko ai, ko ngā tānga ia polo kalama e whiawhin, whawhegi mō tolu ke polo kalama hoko, ai e whahoko atuia, pea meia e mere wahoi ko na kupu, pea mei he leti o ko ia o e funga vai ko puna ka ko pea, ka mō mea, tau tok whilongo ake a pompongi, o whake mō mao hae whiawhi lele.
Urban ecosystems and understanding inequities, and for learning how to remedy